I think this is the 21st time that General McCorkle has spoken to Kiwanis. And seriously, we first met in 2001, just after he'd retired. The Blue Angels were in town. And he spoke to us the next year, 2002, and he's missed 2 times in the past 24 years. One was due to a fire in the kitchen at Ramada Inn. We had to cancel a meeting out. And the other, he had a medical issue. So this is the 21st time. As you know, he was born in San Francisco, but as an infant, he walked over to Harriman, Tennessee. Couldn't handle San Francisco, didn't like it. And he's a graduate of East Tennessee State University. He later got his master's degree at Pepperdine University in Los Angeles. And by the way, he was inducted into the ROTC, ETSU ROTC Hall of Fame back in, I think, 2011. He taught school for a short period of time and then decided he wanted to become a Marine. And he obtained his commission as a second lieutenant after completing officer candidate school at Quantico, Virginia. From there, he went to Naval Flight School, and he began flying the CH-46 helicopter. In Vietnam, he flew over 1,500 missions. And while in Vietnam, he was awarded the Purple Heart, 2 Distinguished Flying Crosses, the Air Medal with 76 Flight Strike missions or awards, and also the Navy Marine Corps Commendation Medal with a Combat V. During his career, he logged more than 6,500 flight hours in 60 different series of aircraft, and this included the U-2 spy plane. His career spanned 35 years, and this included 3 commands prior to being selected as general. And his general commands include Commanding General 3rd Marine Air Wing, which has over 17,000 Marines in it. And it is the largest air station that the Marine Corps has. It's at Miramar, California. In June 1998, he assumed duties as the Deputy Commandant Aviation. And 3 months later was promoted to Lieutenant General. As many of you know, he's the air czar for the Marine Corps, the head aviator. He retired in October 2001 and was awarded the Distinguished Service Medal at that time. Now, he started a new career, and he served on or has served on a number of aviation or aerospace boards, including General Aerospace Services, Rolls-Royce, North America. He was president of Jura Corporation and Votag Corporation. He also served on the board of Lord Corporation, and I think he brought Jim Rogers on that board. He's also on the board of Atlas Worldwide Holdings. He's also a member of a number of nonprofit boards. Now, his best decision was to marry Kathy Schwartz in June 1966. General McCorkle and Kathy live in Gray with their killer dog, Murphy. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Lieutenant General Fred McCorkle, a fellow Kiwanian.
Thanks very much, Admiral. They said you have to put this up close.
That's right.
The Admiral has a pretty good memory. I thought this was only my second time here. As folks get older, and when I first moved here, I was 56 years old. When I retired, And I remember telling my neighbor that the drug dealer that I bought the house from the U.S. Marshals here, he was 76 years old and in very poor health. And I told my neighbor, I said, that dirtbag is so old, he's going to die any day. And my neighbor said, you're the dirtbag. I'm 76, and I'm going to live a long time. He died at 93. And when you talk about trivia, I met a lady who I thought was 100 years old about almost 50 years ago, maybe more than 50 years old. I just came back from Washington, D.C. Her 103rd birthday. She lives alone and drives every day. None of you would want to be in the car with her, I might add, but she still drives every day. So I asked John, I said, well, what can I talk about that I haven't already told these people? And he said, well, give them your thoughts on Israel and Iran. And I thought that would be a good start. But a friend of mine, Skip Ringo, who some of you know in here, he makes all his reservations to do stuff 3 or 4 years in advance. So he had made reservations to go to Israel, then Egypt, and then Jordan about 3.5 years ago. And when the shooting started, everybody started canceling out. So there were 3 spots left, and I took one of those spots, and it was going to be my 11th trip to Israel, but God saw fit that that didn't work out. My last trip over there, by the way, and I was very proud of doing this, and it's a humility thing, not a ego thing. I got to fly their F-15 India at 700 miles an hour over the top of Israel, and Israel is really, the entire state of Israel is smaller than Tri-Cities, which I've said that before. And if you look at a map, the Jewish Israel is about the size of a pinhead. If you look at a regular size map that you see, and all the rest of that area is all Muslim area, you know, that surrounds them. And yet people want to take that too. And the media is biased both ways, in my opinion, you know, when they do stuff. And so this 103-year-old lady just talked about the folks down on the Gaza Strip, which I got to go down there twice during my life, and I often wondered, and I've said this in here before, but a lot of new folks in here, I said, if I hated the individual next to me, I would say, okay, I hate you, but you build Marriott's and I'll build Hilton's, and we'll both be rich. And yet you drive down there and you see all the kids running around with no clothes on, very poor, and all the other stuff, and it's all because of hatred. And it doesn't matter which side. The Israelis, when they get 2 years old, they're told to hate the Muslims. When the Muslims get 2 years old, they're given a pack of cigarettes and told to hate all the Jewish people in the world. And that's the way it works. So I've got to go to Israel 10 times for 10 days each time. And they still have over the years, and they take it to you, which is more propaganda, of course, but buildings like this with big holes in it, where they've taken rockets over years and years and years or whatever. And then Israelis, they dish it out in return. And I'm not sure if they'll ever have peace, but Fred McCorkle's opinion is that the Israelis probably saved us from World War III, whichever side you're on, but the Saudis and a ton of other Muslim countries helped shoot down the Iranian rockets or whatever, because they knew that if they had the atom bomb, the mullahs over there would have launched it ahead of time, and then the U.S., of course, and Russia and China would all get into it, and if North Korea could, they would, or Iran if they could. The Iranian people are having riots in the streets, but I don't think it's ever going to change from the time. And I was a young major in 79, 80 when the Shah, who tried to make a middle class system in there and still keep his solid gold telephones and all the other stuff, when he was thrown out. And I'm not sure if it's ever going to go back again, no matter how much the media or anybody else talks about it, because of the religious czars there are really the ones that have control, and they don't care how many of the military folks are killed. And I think the Israelis are the same way, that they may be arrogant, but they're not going to give up that little bit of land. And they've given up a great deal on the Golan Heights and the Gaza Strip, which once belonged to Israel. And when I was there, you had to go with bulletproof windows and all the other stuff. And I thought it was a real treat to get to go and maybe get attacked and shoot back at somebody. Now I would say send Admiral McKinley down there, because he may be into that stuff, or Keith Thompson as a Marine, either one. But I don't want to go back to the Gaza Strip anymore. I did get to go to Egypt, and that was my third time in Egypt, my second time in Jordan, and to see the pyramids and the other stuff like that. And all three of these countries are right together. And the king of Jordan, by the way, talks to the head of Israel at least 3 or 4 times a week. And when Sharon was there, they talked every day. And so the king of Jordan, when I was there the first time, we visited his father's grave and all the other stuff with a group called JINSA, the Jewish Institute for National Security Affairs. Now they call it the National Security of America, but it's a delicate situation. But I think that no matter what you hear on the news media, that Iran is probably set back, if not in the 12th century or the 16th century. A lot of their weapons and weapons capability was taken out by the Jews, and they were never going to be able to hit the nuclear plants or whatever in the southern part of Iran, because it was too far away. And for the U.S. to decide to do that is beyond me, because I never thought we'd have the guts to do it. I would, but then if there are any shrinks in the crowd, they'll probably say McCorkle should be in a home anyway. So, but to do that to prevent a war, and as Teddy Roosevelt used to say, talk softly, but carry a big stick. And I think that we certainly did that to set those guys back. And behind closed doors, all the Saudis and the other countries over there, certainly Jordan, have applauded what the U.S. has done and what Israel has done. I went to one of these called an MCAA that had about 1,000 people there, and the Secretary of the Navy got up, and he never gave any brief, and he said, "I'll just take questions." And I thought it was the worst that I'd ever seen, and I thought about doing that today, but I thought I would also tell you a little bit about, for an old guy, and I say I can barely get around, but so this year I've been to Egypt and I've been to Jordan, and I just spent 14 days in Ireland. And if you ever get the chance to go there, and I don't know how many people in the audience here are not religious, but I just had this discussion with a couple of atheists. If you go along the coast and you can see from here to the houses out there that they have these cylinder rocks on the coast up there, and they're all about 3 feet high. And then there's another one stacked on top of it, and another one stacked on top of it. And there's probably hundreds of thousands of them, and they're all about 3 feet high, and they're all about this big around. And they're right there on the coast. And they're not man-made, and never seen nature do anything like that. But if you've had a chance to do that, and I knew this from a distance, but Belfast in Northern Ireland is a completely different country from Dublin and Southern Ireland. And for anybody in here that's a whiskey drinker, and I'm not, Jameson is the cheap whiskey that a lot of people drink, and that's all from down in Dublin. And George is up around Belfast. And Belfast is very famous for one thing, and it's not their Irish whiskey. Can anybody guess? The Titanic. And I'm thinking, why the hell would anybody be famous for the Titanic? Because the Titanic was built in Belfast, and that was the 3 biggest ships in the world at that time that were built. So the Titanic did 1/3 of one cruise, and everything you see in Belfast, they got Titanic whiskey, Titanic rugs, Titanic towels, Titanic hats. And so if you ever want to build something on a failure, I'm thinking about having a McCorkle distillery here in Kingsport, if I could afford it. But anyway, great trip. And since we met the last time, when you look at devastation, and if you look at Israel and all the buildings that are blown up there, and they don't show a lot of buildings that are blown up in Iran because there weren't a lot, unless it was a military place. But I think what I've seen and what we've seen between Irwin and Mountain City and Nashville was an event I don't think that we'll ever see again. And I'm the guy that says, hey, I'm in East Tennessee, and we don't have hurricanes, we don't have earthquakes, we don't have any of this stuff. And it missed us by about 20 miles, but that was really devastating. And I can tell you, because I was in the middle of it and went through the middle of a tree and still lived. But and that isn't where I got this scar. It was from Murphy, my killer dog, who is a golden doodle, for God's sakes. But I'll go back to Iran and Israel and see if any of you have any questions about our military today. And I'll tell you, I had almost an open fight with a guy that I was having dinner with who was Jewish. And I thought, hey, this guy's right of Attila the Hun, and he was talking about our Secretary of Defense and what a dirtbag he was, and how weak he was. And for a guy that's not into media guys running anything, or a guy that was in the Army Reserves, with a Bronze Star, that Keith probably killed 25 people with an entrenching tool. And I'm not sure, do you have a Bronze Star, Keith? Oh, yeah, he's got one, but that was for killing 25 bad guys with an entrenching tool. So our SecDef has one for cooking hot dogs or whatever else. And I think Fred McCorkle's opinion is this guy could be one of the best secretaries of defense that we've ever had. I'm in the middle of reading a book where Ukraine was trying to take out Putin, and but that Putin, and I don't doubt it, that he has the death button in his pocket, so that if he's killed, that he would start a nuclear war, from the grave or whatever. And I think that the Ukrainians are still being given a lot. And Russia, who I've studied a lot, and we lost 1 million people during World War II in the United States. And I'm not sure how many people we had then, but it was about 250 million or so. If we got any historians in here, now we're about 360 million. I think that Russia had around 150 million during that time. They lost 10 million people that they killed themselves because of uprisings or whatever else. And they lost about another 7 or 8 million in the war. We almost had a insurrection here over 13 years that we lost 50 to 60,000. I think that the Russians have already lost well over 250,000 of these kids, with half their population in a short period of time. And the Russians are, but it's very much like Iran. Putin is never going to give up, no matter, unless his guards are all laying out in front of him, and then he's still not going to give up. But I think that they're going to hold on unless their top leaders are assassinated or whatever else. And I think that behind the scenes that we're trying to make a deal, where they give up some portion of land or whatever else. But those are tough guys. Those are tough guys, and I think it's going to be a while yet, no matter politics or whatever else, before they lay down their weapons. And with the UAVs now that they've taken out some major Russian ports and major Russian ships, that they know that these guys are in for the count.